Francisco, it's Rex Broadcasting Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Bryan Alvarez.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on!
How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling. We haven't been here in a couple of weeks, and we got a lot to talk about this week, as most weeks. We're going to also have Christopher Daniels, Fallen Angel, in the second hour as our special guest. First hour, we'll be taking your phone calls on whatever subject you would like to discuss about the current scene in professional wrestling, and there is a lot of stuff to talk about. We can talk about WWF and PTC. That lawsuit was settled just before, well, not just before, but a couple of weeks or so before it was supposed to go to trial. And for $3.5 million, the libel suit, kind of a surprise settlement, and kind of a big black eye for El Brent Fozell as that thing went down, because he has no one to blame but himself, and we will talk about that with Bryan Alvarez after this first break. Also, Kevin Nash was injured on Monday, and the entire end is in major jeopardy in WWE. Vince Russo took over as Jerry Jarrett's assistant, booking for NWA TNA on Tuesday of this week. He was he was working for WWF for all of, what was it, like 2 weeks? 2.5 weeks? And switched over, and that caused quite a bit of controversy. Last night was the UFC from London, England, and the big experiment from last night was, what would weekly television mean for the UFC? And I think the experiment was pretty much of a success, because they had a pretty smart crowd there, and all the fighters were treated like they were television stars as opposed to just fight. And of course, that's they've been having weekly on one of the Sky channels. I think it's Sky One. And the last week before the UFC, they were having 2-hour specials every single night, so it was a real big deal. Very successful show overall, and we can talk more about that. Matt Hughes beating Carlos Newton in the main event to retain the welterweight championship. And also, the last time we were on 2 weeks ago tonight on live was the night of the Pride pay-per-view and the Don Fry Yoshihiro Takayama match. And I had not seen it, and Bryan was watching it while we were on the air. That thing was frickin' amazing. That was one of the greatest fights I have ever seen. It might have been the greatest fight in my entire life. I don't know what to say about it. But anyway, we can talk about all of these subjects, and we're going to get back to talking about them, or any subject you want to talk about. WWE Confidential, the state of the WWE, Rock return Thursday, ratings in the toilet. So much more to talk about. We'll be back with Bryan Alvarez right after this for Live Radio Network.
Time for more Wrestling Observer Live. Email the show now or anytime at WOL@WrestlingObserver.com. That's WOL@WrestlingObserver.com. Now back to Dave Meltzer and Bryan Alvarez.
Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. We'll be taking your calls for this first hour. Second hour, Christopher Daniels, probably the most sought-after free agent, at least free agent who's never been a former WWF superstar, on the market, and we'll be talking about NWA TNA, Japan, and all of the travels in between that Christopher Daniels goes on. Bryan, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good.
Bryan, what was your thought Tuesday when the news came out that Jerry Jarrett had officially hired Vince Russo, who was working for WWE up until the night before?
Well, I was actually kind of in a good mood about it. It sounds horrible, but as much as I've liked some of the TNA shows, and we got some great feedback this week, and they've had some awesome main events, I think the business plan is flawed, and I think it's going to die. And I think that Vince Russo is better off being with a promotion that's going to die than being with the WWF and speeding up its demise.
Okay. Actually, I thought very similar. But I'll tell you what, I felt really sorry for a lot of the people working for NWA TNA, though, because there's going to be, just bringing Vince Russo aboard. The guy's so controversial for good reason, and a lot of the people in that office worked with Vince Russo. And I would say, with the exception of Jeff Jarrett and Jerry Jarrett, I would think they all hated him. And now they all have to pretend that they like him, and it's going to be a pretty interesting game going on. Plus, you've got the philosophical situation where what has made that promotion, what a lot of people have liked about the promotion, which is, the good wrestling in the main events, especially the X Division matches, is stuff that, Vince Russo doesn't believe in 20-minute matches. He's saying he likes the X Division, but he doesn't believe in 20-minute matches, and he believes in a lot of the comedy. Now, the stuff that Russo did on Wednesday Night Show I thought was mostly pretty good, but, again, like Jasmine St. Clair, I think there's about maybe one skit in her lifetime that was good, and we saw it on Wednesday night. I think that when they try to do it again, it probably won't.
You actually have to give Vince Russo credit, though, for being an incredible self-promoter, because he went...
I've always credited him for that ever since he left WWF.
I think he's even more incredible now, though, because
he has to overcome his... Yeah, go ahead.
Track record that he had...
He has to overcome...
To in the past 2 weeks being hired by WWE and NWA TNA.
And both wanted him, and it's funny because, NWA TNA wanted him from day one, even though they were always denying it because of the legal situation. He ended up getting himself in this thing where Time Warner, said that they would defend him in the lawsuit, the Hulk Hogan lawsuit, even if he worked for Vince McMahon, which, of course, then would also allow him to work for Jerry Jarrett. So he was sitting there working for Vince McMahon, getting a paycheck for basically critiquing Raw and SmackDown, which is funny because there's like 6 zillion people who actually do that for free now, and maybe many of them know a lot more about wrestling than Vince Russo. But he got himself a job there, and then he ended up, the one thing I think that it shows about both Vince McMahon and Jerry Jarrett, though, is that no matter what they publicly will say, both are very scared and desperate men.
Yeah.
Because
I would say Vince more than Jerry, but when that first buy rate number comes in, that could change.
Well, the real buy rate. It could change depending on what it really is, and we can talk a lot more about that. You wrote something today about the Figure 4 this week about the TC and the WWF and being surprised, I guess, about the verdict, and the out-of-court settlement before the verdict. El Brent Bozell paying WWE $3.5 million, which is going to make their next quarter look not so bad. All of a sudden, which was looking like...
Amazing, because that always happens.
In what sense?
I'm just always expecting for, the last year now...
Oh, that they were going to have a really...
Yeah, this quarterly report to come out that's just a complete disaster. And then every time it comes out, it's like, wow, they did real good.
Yeah. Well, this one's going to be pretty tough when you're going from 6,000 people at the arenas to 2,000 people at the arenas or 3,000. It's going to show. But also, one of the things about that lawsuit is that this lawsuit was lost by the PTC out of pure and total stupidity, because they had no business losing this thing, because, fair comment is fair comment, and the only way they ever could have lost, they could have said anything they wanted because Vince McMahon's a public figure practically, as long as they didn't blatantly lie and disregard the truth, and for God knows what reason, they decided to do that, and, they got what they deserved, so to speak.
Yeah. I was shocked because I was reading your thing on it, and I guess WWF was originally asking in the suit for $55 million.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow.
Well, that number probably scared them enough to settle out of court. Well, the lawyers told them, you're going to,
Yeah, plus they had the insurance cover it, so.
Yeah, I know, they didn't even get hurt.
Yeah.
So, you do. Anyway.
It was funny, too, because there's that thing about how basically L. Brent Bozell III had to write a public apology to Vince McMahon and World Wrestling Entertainment, and because of the settlement, it has to appear on their website for 6 months. And I read this in this newspaper article last week, so I thought, well, I'll go to the website and get the entire statement, because they didn't have the entire statement in the article. So I go up there to the website, and I swear to you, it took me about 5 minutes to find that statement, because it was buried down there at the bottom, amongst everything else, and I thought, wow, it'll be there for 6 months, but no one will ever see it.
No, but every wrestling fan saw it that wanted to see it.
Yeah.
Because WWE put it on their website, or put a lot of it on there. Anyway, let's go to Staten Island, New York with Roy. You're going to be our first caller. What's going on?
Hi, Dave and Brian. Great show as always.
Thank you.
Brian, I read on the internet that Nash got injured because Booker T gave him a reach around. Is that true?
Let's go to Alan in Deerfield, Florida. What's going on? Hey, Alan.
Hey, I wanted to ask you about, I heard that Jimmy Snuka is going to be indicted for Nazi Argentina murder.
No.
Or something to that effect.
Absolutely no. That's like 20 years ago.
20 years ago, yeah.
I think the statute of limitations, actually on a murder case it may not, but no, that thing's long been, that the case has long been closed and settled. It was 20 years ago.
I don't know.
Or not quite 20, but probably like 17 years ago.
Somebody said something about that, I guess, but that's the internet for you. But let me ask you about the sex lies.
Yes.
Who is it that beat up Brian Pillman backstage? They mentioned that in the book, I'm sure.
It never happened. It was guys were talking about beating up Brian Pillman backstage. Nobody ever did.
Oh, I misconstrued that.
No one ever did.
They were threatening him.
I don't know if they were threatening him as much as they talked among each other, like, God, Brian is, like, really screwing up. What are we going to do? Hey, maybe we should beat him up.
Right.
I don't even know if Brian ever heard that because, during that decline of Brian Pillman, I talked to him constantly, and if he ever heard about it, he sure never told me.
Right, you're saying the decline of Pillman. But I'm saying, like, when he was going off the deep end and stuff, most of that was a work, right?
Oh, boy.
Stuff on TV?
The stuff on TV was a work.
No, I'm talking about behind the scenes.
Actually, a lot of behind the scenes was a work, too. And what was and what wasn't, I don't even think he knows. I think he got caught up in his character so much that he became his work.
That's interesting. So
it was scary.
To get that caught up in your character, I almost think you have to be self-destructing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Andy Kaufman was the same way.
Yeah.
So as far as the book, it's a tremendous book. But I'm saying also they talked about Flair and the situation between him and Bischoff and Dusty Rhodes and all those things.
Yeah, that's a good book.
Yeah, it's a tremendous book.
Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot.
Okay, you're very welcome.
Did you watch Confidential with Snuka, by the way?
Yes, I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Was it any good?
No, but I think the big deal was that he mentioned had a cocaine problem in the 80s.
Oh, there's that little bit of truth on there.
A little bit of truth, and then and everybody was going, well, they're going to mention Nancy Argentina, and of course it was never mentioned once. And I was shocked. Basically, the whole segment. So you didn't see it?
Well, I have it on tape, but I wasn't sure if I should watch it because
the whole segment was like Matt Hardy and D'Lo Brown and a lot of the guys, Tommy Dreamer, all talking about how Snuka was the innovator. When he jumped off the cage, and they all remembered it. Hey, I grew up watching it, and I'll never forget that spot either. And they showed the spot where he jumped off the cage on Don Morocco. And we were watching because I had a whole bunch of friends over last night for the UFC, and boy, everyone remembered that, and they just Jimmy Snuka was like a god to these people, which is kind of funny.
Think about that too, because he just changed. I'm not downplaying anything that he did, but look at some of the things that these guys do. Who in 20 years is going to remember Jeff Hardy doing a senton off the cage and almost killing himself?
Or Chris Benoit doing the headbutt off the cage.
Yeah, they'll all remember Mick Foley going off the cage.
Yeah, because that thing's been replayed 400 times.
Yeah, but other than that, everything else just forgotten.
Do you think anyone's going to remember any of those balcony dives that New Jack did?
No.
No. I don't think so either. Let's go to Ed in San Antonio. Ed, what's going on?
Hey, guys. What I want to talk to you about is the NWA title match from this past week.
The one with Takao Omori and Ken Shamrock.
Yes. What were the politics involved for no one not allowing their competitor to lose clean?
They just sent word that it had to be a no contest. So their hands were in NWA TNA's fault. Other than that, they probably should have settled it before booking the match.
Just gonna say that's something you should probably get out of the way before you agree to bring the guy over from Japan.
Yeah.
Well, considering that it's Ken Shamrock and he's a name in Japan and it's NWA, I figured that it would be all right for him to lose.
I would have thought that too, and I think they would have thought that too. But the day came and they had to rebook it.
Okay, and I want to ask you another question about Ron Waterman.
Okay, yeah, real quick.
Okay, like he was mentioning, he wanted to go to New Japan. How did the wrestler with not that much name exposure get a job in New Japan?
Lucky and the right friends at these, Danny Devine's there all the time. He had less experience than Ron Waterman. We got to head to a break. We will be back with more. You're listening to the rest of Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
We're back with Wrestling Observer Live. Give us a call anywhere in the U.S. toll-free at 1-866-OBSERVER. That's 1-866-627-3783. Once again, here's Dave Meltzer and Bryan Alvarez.
Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, and Bryan Alvarez with Bryan Alvarez at Figure 4 Weekly. And we're here every 2 hours, Sunday night, 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Time with Wrestling Observer Live. And if you're interested in either the Wrestling Observer newsletter or Figure 4 Weekly publications that cover everything going on in the world of pro wrestling, you can go to WrestlingObserver.com. We also have daily news updates, a lot of features, and a lot of other stuff during the week. So you can always go to the website, get info on getting both of the newsletters, and you'll be the most informed wrestling fan, not only in your block, but perhaps in your city. Anyway, Bryan.
Especially if you're in Winville.
Yeah, probably. Bryan, what Monday night Kevin Nash has been out of action for about 3 months with a torn bicep, and it's somewhat the last minute. He didn't know until he got to the building that he was going to have to wrestle. They set up a 10-man tag. They didn't tell him ahead of time. He actually had to have his gear shipped from his home up to where was that show on Monday night? I don't even remember. Philadelphia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he got it shipped to Philadelphia, and in the first, right after doing a high kick to Booker T went down. Kevin Nash kind of stumbled, planted his left leg, and boom, his left quad blew out, and he was under the operating table with Dr. Jim Andrews the next day, and he's out of action. They're saying 6 months. I have a feeling it's going to be longer than 6 months. And quite frankly, I do believe that Kevin Nash wants to come back and will come back, because who wants to end your career, with that sound? I mean, but I wonder, even if he does come back, I mean, he's probably just going to get hurt again.
Yeah. I was actually amused reading all the stuff about, people put blame on various people.
The Brian Gewirtz stuff. Let me break in. That stuff where people blame Brian Gewirtz is the biggest bunch of hooey I have ever read in my life.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing to me is, okay, Kevin Nash was out with an injured bicep. He got hurt in his first match back because he was rushed to TV or whatever. He didn't injure his bicep. He injured his quad. And he injured his quad, and I hate to downplay this injury, but he was walking, and he blew his quad out. And that could have happened on any day, in any city, in any match, at any time. And to blame anybody for that, I mean, you can't blame Kevin Nash. You can't blame anybody. If you want to blame God, that's one thing. But aside from that, you can't blame anybody for that injury, because it was just a freak thing that happened.
It was, but what Kevin Nash has done probably didn't help it. But it could have happened on any day. No. If it didn't happen, and the fact is, he was medically cleared to go. He was going to start wrestling on Friday, so instead of his first match being on Friday, it was on Monday. The odds are, if he was going to blow his quad out by taking a step, it could have easily happened on Friday night, Saturday night. The bottom line is, if he was
happened in the airport,
if he tripped over somebody.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but you're right. Anything else you want to add to the Kevin Nash story?
I think I sent you this email right after the show, but I thought Shawn Michaels did the most tremendous job on that show, because he was standing out there, he was standing out there on the apron doing absolutely nothing, and his friend, or the guy he calls his best friend, went down in the line of duty, and everybody else in the ring, there's 10 guys in the ring, two of them are two of the best workers that you'll ever see, Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit. It's not like they totally lost it, but
you left out X-Pac.
Yeah, the match completely fell apart, and Shawn Michaels, I mean, he didn't even miss a beat. He didn't go over to check on Nash. He just went to save the match, and he pretty much did.
He pretty much saved the match. It's too bad he wasn't in that mixed tag earlier in the show.
Huh?
Too bad he wasn't in that mixed tag earlier in the show.
Ringside, he would have saved that one as well, I think.
That was unbelievable. I mean,
they totally lost it, but
you've left out X-Pac.
Yeah, the match completely fell apart, and Shawn Michaels, I mean, he didn't even miss a beat. He didn't go over to check on Nash. He just went to save the match, and he pretty much did.
He pretty much saved the match. It's too bad he wasn't in that mixed tag earlier in the show.
Huh?
Too bad he wasn't in that mixed tag earlier in the show.
Ringside, he would have saved that one as well, I think.
That was unbelievable. I mean, for those of you who did not watch Raw on Monday night,
you missed the worst match in history.
Oh my God, poor, what?
That's horrible.
Was it they ripping her?
Yeah, that's as bad as ripping Brian Gewirtz.
Yeah, no, but I mean, she was real bad in that match. I mean, she was. It just reminded me of someone who just panicked, and then everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. That one spot, there was a spot there. I would describe it for you, but I have no idea what it was.
What it was? I think Trish was supposed to run at her, and Jackie would throw her over the top rope. But Jackie forgot, so Trish just ran past her and started jumping over the top rope.
But you know what?
I realized she hadn't been touched. They just fell down.
The thing about that, though, is at the end of the match, okay, the one who was the one who blew all the spots was Jackie Gaeta, but the one who was also Jackie Gaeta, because on that missed Bulldog spot, she knew enough to kick out because the spot was botched, and Trish Stratus didn't know enough to go over, and the ref still counted 3.
I don't know if she didn't know enough or she just wanted to end the thing.
Yeah, that could be too. You're Jim Ross.
I know.
This merciful ending. Oh, my God.
Jim Ross was psychic, because as Jackie's come down to the ring, he went on this long thing about, well, these young kids are green and they're going to make some mistakes and this and that. And I just was thinking, why are they here then? Why are they on Raw right now? I mean, I cannot hold anything against Jackie Gaeta, because, seriously, what do you expect? This girl trained in Tough Enough for 11 weeks. and they threw her on TV in front of a national live audience on Raw. This wasn't SmackDown where they could, edit on. This was on a live show, and, what do you expect? Something like this is going to happen. How can you even blame her? I blame whoever put her in the ring.
I guess all the blame ends up going to Vince McMahon. We're going to go to John in Chicago. John, what's going on?
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Going back to the young talent, did you happen to read the Ross report?
Yes, I did.
Oh.
I always read the Ross report.
It seems like him, and I know you guys have a little, I don't know what you would call it, with OneWrestling.com.
We don't have anything with OneWrestling.com. That's a myth.
Okay.
I mean, seriously,
today it'll be on OneWrestling.com.
No, but seriously, I mean, like.
But it seems he's like running some commentary against him, like Dave Scherer,
He's not writing anything about me.
No, but it's just like.
I don't think. I mean, maybe he is. I don't.
Well,
think.
His people with inside sources talking about, certain aspects of the WWE.
I think he's writing about people with inside sources that don't know what they're talking about. And you can label whoever you want on that one, but I don't think he means me.
But one thing I'm wondering, he's talking in the report. He's talking about the young talent needs to step up. Okay.
Yes.
Isn't the problem is the young talent is being put on there, either they're too green, or when they are shown to be, we've got something here, maybe we should build on it. They're always having their legs cut underneath them by the so-called veterans, in the back, or by the people who are booking the whole situation there. I just happened to come across the most recent newsletter, and I was looking at that, and I'm like, why would people, and I'm talking about, I guess, Triple H or, some other people like that, why are they cutting, why is Vince allowing this to be happening? I mean, I understand that he has certain, the veterans, but you're looking at the future of the damn company here.
Well, I don't think he gets it. I mean, if Hunter comes up to Vince and goes, look, this thing with John Cena slapping you, nobody should touch you until SummerSlam when you have your match with Hogan.
Right.
And I can see Vince thinking,
that makes sense.
He's right.
Right.
No one should be touching me until. I don't think Vince goes, Hunter is trying to hold this young man down.
But that's just one example. But I mean, we've had there's numerous of stuff, and even if you don't understand, even if you don't hear the stuff as far as what happens backstage, you can tell by just looking at the programming, just looking at like what Chris Jericho went through the first 3 months of this year as the undisputed champion. If you're going to push him, why are you putting him in this dog angle with, why are you making him lesser than his supposed manager,
Well, I mean, it's a problem.
Well, Stephanie.
It's a problem with the writing. But ultimately, a lot of people are down on the writers, and maybe they should be, but ultimately the one, I think that to an extent, a lot of the writers are getting I don't want to say a bad rap, but they're getting an unfair blame because the buck stops with Vince McMahon.
Oh, that's true.
I mean, there's not
one thing about that though, and that is that I think the writers. If I'm wrong here, you can correct me, but I think the writers write the show and then Vince goes over it and tweaks things or whatever.
Or throws out things he doesn't want.
Yeah, I don't think that Vince writes an outline of the entire show and then they write it and then they bring it back to him and he goes over it like a second time.
No, you're right how you're describing it.
So they're writing the show, and I don't think Vince would ever go up to him and go, look, you need to rewrite this entire show because this sucks.
And from what I've always heard is that he's not interested in the lower card guys anyway.
Well, he needs to be. But the thing is that there is not a segment on Raw or SmackDown that is not approved by Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
So if somebody writes something really bad, it is Vince McMahon's job to say, this is really bad, take it off and put something else in. And that happens every, pretty much every week.
Maybe he doesn't know what's bad. I mean, he segments where he's kissing young women who are like...
Well, I think they're writing that for his benefit and not ours.
But real quick, Dave...
make it very quick because we got to get out of here.
Kevin Nash, I know there was very little sympathy as far as his injury and everything.
There's plenty of sympathy.
I'm just wondering, I mean, do you think he's going to be back faster than the vanilla midget that he talked about, Chris Benoit, who came back from a neck injury?
Benoit was a year. I think Nash may make it back quicker than a year because his injury is not quite, the surgery isn't quite as bad. Anyway, you're listening to the Wrestling Observer live on the Sports Byline Radio Network.
This is Big John McCarthy of the UFC, and you're listening to the Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Bryan Alvarez.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly, and we're here for 2 hours every Sunday night here on Sports Byline and Rex Broadcasting affiliates. And we're going to be joined in our second hour by Christopher Daniels, probably one of the leading independent wrestlers in the country, maybe the leading independent wrestler in the country, and probably one of the best all-around wrestlers that is not in the World Wrestling Entertainment. In World Wrestling Entertainment, I have to get used to that one. Anywhere around, at least in the United States. We'll be talking to him about the trials and tribulations of being Curry Man in Japan and an independent superstar, of being a superstar known by some fans, able to walk through airports and people don't recognize you as a professional wrestler, and therefore, you know about that walking through airports thing. That's the star maker, isn't it?
It really is.
Yes.
Although it didn't do it for Jake.
Jake Roberts?
No, remember Jake on Tough Enough?
Jake from Tough Enough.
Everybody asked him if he was a WWF wrestler.
And if he knew how to wrestle, he would be.
That's right.
I'll tell you what. You know, when we saw Jackie Gaeta, okay, now think about this for all you people who were mad about Jake. She was much better than Jake. In fact, so much better that there was, from what I understood, there was not even a comparison between her skill level and Jake's. Okay, now Kenny already, he was a better worker than Jackie Gaeta, but, you know, he didn't have boobs, so that hurt him. But
you know what's weird, though, about that whole thing is you were just mentioning that if wrestle, he would have a job. And, I don't know. The thing is, I watch HWA TV, and Johnny the Bull is so horrible. He is so horrible. And I hope he's not listening because he'd kill me, but he's just terrible. And I was reading the Ross report, and, you know, they released
Chad Collier and Ron Waterman.
Chad Collier and Ron Waterman. And ironically, Chad Collier was on the show that I watched last night, and he is a freaking good wrestler. But he does not have Johnny the Bull's body. Therefore, he is done for. And
doesn't Chad Collier's got a good body? He's just short, right?
He's got a good body, but he's got a good Dean Malenko body.
Yeah. Well, he's a Dean Malenko guy.
That nobody's going to look at on TV. That guy is huge, like they will for Johnny the Bull.
Well, part of the reason that Chad Collier got released is because, you know, he was going to go to Japan. But no, you're right about that though. You know, and we're going to see a lot of that. You know, there's going to be a lot of questions about talent that's brought up. I mean, hey, you know, you wrote it. I've written it too. You know, Christopher Nowinski. I like his gimmick. I like his look. People know who he is. But my God, he's not ready.
Yeah. I mean, Kurt Angle was pretty damn good from day one. But imagine if after 11 weeks he was on TV.
He'd have been okay. I saw him at that period. I mean, he wouldn't have been ready. But he'd have been
a bad example.
Okay, that's the worst example possible, actually, because now The Rock.
Okay, The Rock. There you go.
The Rock. That would have been a better example because I saw The Rock. Although he wasn't that bad at 11.
Pick any top guy right now. How about Hunter?
At 11 weeks, he really wouldn't have been ready.
He'd be done for.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go to Matt in Boston. Matt, what's going on?
Hey, Dave, here, Brian.
Hey.
I wanted to ask you quickly about Muto and his retirement talk. Is that just an angle to sell tickets?
Not after he does those 3 matches.
Those are going to be horrible.
3 in one night. I think, you know, he's already regretting it, that he backed himself into that one. But now he's got to do it. It's 3 matches on the 20th.
I also want to talk quickly about WWF, which I rarely do. But I read this week's Observer and about Triple H and his basically vetoing of John Cena's...
Vince McMahon did. Triple H just gave Vince McMahon the idea.
Yeah, but would Vince have come up with without Triple H?
Probably not.
No.
So, yeah. Triple H really needs to learn that there will be no fans to cheer him if there's no, new talent up top. So it's pointless for him to even ever not allow someone to get pushed up. Jericho's an example, and probably many others. Triple H is really despicable human being as far as I'm concerned as of late, and I really am tired of him.
But you know what? Okay. Look at the lessons that the wrestling business teaches you. Okay, Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash is the one who he's the one. He's made more money doing less than anyone in this business except for maybe Sting. Okay, And Kevin Nash did all of these things, and the company went out of business. And guess who came in, with the exception of Hogan, with the highest downside guarantee of all the WCW guys, and with the best contract and with the fewest dates? Kevin Nash. So what does that tell you?
The smart guy.
That the guy, it's like, and after how many times were we told that, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall would never be brought in because we don't want that cancer in the locker room. And then when they were brought in, every single thing that we could have feared would have happened. But when Kevin Nash comes back, do you think that he's going to be cut? Because he's not.
Oh, of course not. No.
There you go.
But, I would almost think that Hunter would have learned by now that you only make big money if there's a ton of people, buying the shows and showing up or whatever. And if you're top guy and no one's showing up at the event and you have nobody to work and business falls because of it, you're making less money.
That's true. You're right, but I think you're thinking one step deeper than they are. Their thinking is, it's like there's only a few spots on top. There's 5 spots, let's say, that are the top spots in the company. And if somebody gets to one of those top spots, let's say that decreases my odds of holding it by a lot.
Yeah, I understand why he does, keep his spot and everything, but there's not going to be, how long is all these fans going to stay around there? Are they leaving in droves?
They're leaving in droves now.
Yeah, I don't know what the guy's thinking.
Just a little farther ahead.
Yeah. But no, here's the other thing. We're talking about professional wrestling. Nobody thinks more than 3 weeks ahead in this business anyway. If they did, WCW would still be in business because they'd have figured out what they were doing wrong in 98 when they were still on top.
Yeah. But what's funny is when WCW was falling, I think if you would have interviewed Hunter back then, he would have said all this stuff. Oh, they need to create new stars. The top guys you just have aside, blah, 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 blah. Now it's happening, and, it's totally different.
Yeah, but so did everyone else in WWF. They all said the same thing about what WCW should do. So they're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go to Ernie in San Diego. Ernie, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Not too much.
I just had a comment on the whole Vince Russo thing.
Yes.
Just real quick. I got to go against your guys' opinions as far as Vince Russo.
And tell me why.
I think he was great at what he did, which is coming up with ideas. Vince McMahon is great at recognizing good ideas.
Really?
Not in the last 18 months. He's not.
Well, obviously not, because he doesn't have many good people to give him good ideas. I mean,
he's got smart. Hey, Heyman's smarter than Russo. So
Heyman had a lot of good. Heyman does have good ideas, and some of the stuff he's doing. I mean, you get some of the stuff they're doing is entertaining. It just so happens that the stuff that's on the downside is so bad that it just makes the whole show look bad. I mean, Russo had bad ideas, and in WCW it was obvious because all his ideas were coming out.
He didn't have
the bad ones. Even if he had a good one, it looked bad because the rest of the show was bad.
Yeah.
So when he had one bright spot, which is a good idea, that because he comes up with so many ideas, makes it. I mean, Vince McMahon is a genius at doing that.
He was. That's the important part. Was, and I would agree. You can never deny. From 97 through 99, that period when Vince McMahon and Vince Russo worked together, that they turned that business around, they saved that company, but they also had Steve Austin and The Rock and people like that that were in the ring doing it, and it was a combination of Mick Foley, a lot of things that were there. But Vince Russo was very effective in that role. He was also very ineffective in his subsequent roles.
Yeah. I think Russo's biggest problem is that he has a lot of creative ideas, but he has no understanding of very basic, the most basic wrestling booking that there is. And I don't know if he wrote the Bryan Christopher thing at the NBA pay-per-view on Wednesday, but Bryan Christopher came out and he's cutting a promo on Jerry Lawler. Not even with the company, and they will never have a match together on NWA. And I just sat there thinking, why the hell would you do this?
Yeah.
What's the point?
He's definitely easy to blame, I'll tell you that. One other quick question. What happened with the Shane twins and the NWA tag team title?
They just threw it down because they, all the NWA titles that Jerry Jarrett wanted, which were, he didn't want the junior heavyweight title because he created his own X title. But the heavyweight title on the tag was the Shane twins had them, so they basically were going to have to vacate them, and so they just threw them down. So that's the story.
Oh, okay. All right. That's all I want to know. Hey, thanks a lot, guys.
Okay, let's go to Tim in El Paso, Texas. Tim, how you doing tonight?
Hey, Dave, I just got a quick question.
Sure.
Who do you think would win in a race, a Hogan-Flair match or Bob Ryder's Metabolism?
I don't know. Let's go to Jesse in Seattle. Jesse.
Hello, how are you today?
Doing fine.
I don't mean to sidetrack your question here, but Who are all of these nosy people? Outside influences I'm seeing around you by the moon card.
This is amazing night. Let's go to Dan in Chicago. Dan, what's going on? Let's see if we can get an intelligent conversation.
I'll be cool, don't worry. All right, I got an interesting comment to make. What if, let's say, the next Raw is really horrible, and let's say the next SmackDown or the next pay-per-view is horrible? What would happen if the fans decided to, like baseball, they were talking about the fans not going to the games? What would happen if the fans went on strike? What would happen to the WWE then?
It couldn't happen because the fans couldn't organize. There's no way of organizing. I mean, the baseball fans can't organize, and the wrestling fans.
Well, just not show up to the games is what I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
How do you do that? How do you do that? How do you do that? How do you get the word out? I mean, there's no way. There's no way to get. You couldn't do it. It'd be impossible.
Like every single solitary fan just decides not to go.
All right.
Yeah, well,
you're kind of seeing it now where attendance is down to 2,000, so you are seeing a lot of fans doing that. But
it's not an organized thing. They're just doing it because they just don't feel like buying tickets.
Yeah, they don't care anymore.
Yeah.
But I don't see how you could organize, every single solitary fan.
You can't boycott. You can't organize a boycott of wrestling. It would never work.
It was just a thought I had,
Okay.
The other thing is I saw Chad Collier at MCW over here in Streamwood. He didn't really impress me too much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he like the first person I thought of was what you said about Dean Malenko. He looked like a Dean Malenko type wrestler.
But that still puts him ahead of Johnny the Bull.
It does. That was the point I was trying to make.
That which was the point Bryan was making.
Okay. The other thing is too, I like Christopher Nowinski. I like his head. I like how his
I do too. He's just not ready for the big time.
You don't think so?
Absolutely.
I have a feeling. I think he'll do fine.
He may do fine, but he's not ready yet. Hey, listen, I like Jackie Gata. I think that she's got a great look, and I think she's got great fire. But clearly, Monday's show, she's not ready for the WWE.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with that. And can I talk about Kevin Nash if I could?
Sure.
A little disappointed in him. How would you feel? Another theory I have. He didn't seem like he wanted to wrestle Monday on just the way he talked.
I don't think he ever really feels like wrestling.
Okay, personally,
$700,000, so you kind of do what you're asked.
I mean, you're out 3 months.
For the most point.
To being out, But do you think he did that to himself on purpose?
No, absolutely not. You never try to give yourself surgery. Absolutely. Especially 43-year-old guy, you want to rip a muscle? No way.
Okay.
No way.
It just kind of looked suspicious to me for some.
Well, it's because he didn't really do a lot to get hurt.
Right.
I mean, he just stepped down. But no, you don't want it. You don't.
Okay.
No.
All right, guys. I hope the rest of your night goes smoothly with the callers. Oh, one thing. Can you ask Christopher Daniels if he's going to be at the MCW show here in Streamwood? Because I heard something that he might be.
Okay, well, we'll ask him about MCW among many other things.
All
sure.
right, bye.
Okay, we've got to head to a commercial break right now. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
Time for more Wrestling Observer Live. Email the show now or anytime at WOL@WrestlingObserver.com. That's WOL@WrestlingObserver.com. Now back to Dirk and Bryan Alvarez.
Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. We're here for 2 hours every Sunday night, and we're going to get to one phone call before we have to take our hourly break. Don't forget, second hour, Christopher Daniels will be with us, so we will be got a lot of talk to him about. Let's go to Dominic in Musina, New York. Dominic, how are you tonight?
How are we doing, guys? First and foremost, Dave, I just got your tributes book. Phenomenal read. I commend you on the work you did there.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
First and foremost, you're talking about why Johnny the Bull is there. There's two guys I'm wondering why they haven't been called up yet. And see if you guys know the Easy Money and Steve Bradley. He's been there for 4 years. The kid should be ready by now.
And he is ready, too.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
far more ready than some guys.
I think he has almost a perfect angle just to get him in. Just have him coming in, beating up the Rob Conways and the Nick Dinsmore. Come out and just going on a promo saying, I've been through every friggin' AAA spot in here, and you guys have not called me up yet. I mean, to me, it'd be the perfect way to get him in right away. Just beat up everyone who's not everyone, but enough of the guys who've been called up.
Maven, Jackie.
Oh, yeah.
Maven's doing good, though.
Yeah, but he can still get beaten up for getting there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, of course.
Just like all those guys had in there. Also, I want to talk to the NWA TNA. Another fantastic week of showing. If anybody who runs a cable company, pick them up right away. I mean, it's the second show I've gotten. I got the first show and this show. I was set 5 minutes after maybe the second or third match show. The work they've done, the angles are actually, they're not dumbing the audience. Perfect example when the whole Jarrett and whoever the NWA president guy that was there, it seemed like everything was written down and made it look like he's actually talking to him about everything. It doesn't dumb the audience, which is one thing I've really liked that they've been doing.
Well, they have
Not Don West.
Well, okay, Don West, yeah, the guy makes him, Steve McMiles looks like Gordon Sully compared to him. Someone shoot him, kill him. Also, another thing.
Make it really quick because we got to head to our early break.
They should make Ed Ferrara the biggest face on God's green earth for spearing, well, I said Brad Miller, whatever his name is, for
Joe Behrens.
to jump in with that. That's almost like Goldberg could have been the biggest heel of all time. That's the first Russo show where the girl is going to pull, and he comes out and spears them. He could have been the biggest heel in the whole company after that act right there.
Yeah, that was some really good timing, and that was something that, Russo put that one all together. That was all Russo. Anyway, we have got to head to our hourly break. We'll be back for our second hour with Chris Daniels. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.